Ashley?
Come on in.
You're live.
We're live. Okay, I'm going to welcome everybody to the Administration Committee, 4:30 Thursday, March the 7th. I'm going to go ahead and order. Acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. And we'll move on to citizens' comments. Item number 2.
We don't have
We
any.
don't have
We don't have any. We're moving on to item number 3. Approval of previous meetings' minutes. I actually had a comment or two. At the bottom of the first page, it says, he said that naming a council member does not necessarily mean equate to a personal attack. I think just maybe just equate to a personal attack. It looks like there's 2 words or there's a word missing maybe.
All right.
And then I also noticed that in item B, Councilmember Campson said she received citizens' feedback in favor of the political signage. If I didn't mean to say that, if I did, I meant limiting. I mean, I've heard from people who were interested in limiting, so maybe it's just limiting, but yeah, not political signage in general. So those are the only 2
Of
things.
limiting signage.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else know?
I make a motion, we approve with those changes.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to approve as amended in a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Moving on to, what am I doing? Oh, okay, I was like, wait a minute, that looks weird. All right, old business. A, interview of candidates for Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. So we have 2 people here today, Margaret Miller and Rod Turnage. And would we ask maybe Mr. Turnage to wait in the hall while we, okay,
Yes, please.
sorry. Thank you, we appreciate it. We'll be with you soon. So, Ms. Miller, would you like to join us up here at the table?
Thank you.
That's, I'm gonna confuse myself again with that. So, thank you for submitting an application.
Thank you for selecting me for an interview.
Yeah, sure. I'll let everybody else kind of pitch in here. If you got any questions or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you have an impressive resume. Just curious, I think you've been on the tax committee before, right? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, I was, and I'm trying to remember the dates and times. I think it was like in the mid-2000s.
Yeah,
What makes you want to return?
I'm now retired, successfully, might add. I like the Isle of Palms. I like to, I enjoyed my time on the tax committee. I had just served so many years that it was time for a new face. And it's been so many years that I feel I'm a new face again. I've lived out here since the mid-'80s. My parents have had 2 businesses on the island, which they did sold about in the early 2000s. I just like to see that what is being brought into the island is beneficial to the committee, to the island residents. When their requests for ATAX funds, are they really what we want on the island? What we need on the island is the best thing for the island? And just seeing that, making sure that it is productive for the tourism that we have.
So not a rubber stamp, you want to make sure that it fits the kind of a certain criteria that's beneficial for the island.
Yes, sir. I'm an auditor by trade. Did that for 28 years. I like details. I like facts. I like data. I like to know why. And as auditors like to say, show me. You know, you can't just hand them a piece of paper and prove that those numbers are right. So I like looking at things that way.
I'll keep asking questions unless.
Well, I have one. It was kind of a follow-up. Can you think of anything on your time before on the committee, or maybe that you've noticed in passing since you were no longer on the committee, that would be an example of something that you don't think necessarily fit? Or you may not have been that plugged into their workings, and if you aren't, you can just say that's totally
Wasn't
fine.
that plugged into the workings that way.
Or maybe just something in your mind that might not be something we'd like to promote.
It's hard to say because everything has 2 sides to the story. And until you really hear both sides, it's hard to say. I can't think of anything that I can really say that, no, that was a waste of funds. We shouldn't have done that. There are things that I question at one time or another, but then it's like, okay, I understand why.
So it's just a process for you to
It's-
get to that
It's a
determination.
process to get to the determination. And is my mind made up and am I set in my ways? Not really. If I firmly believe and have the data behind me to support a reasoning or to dissupport another reasoning, I can't, I can be flexible and adjustable. It's not a rubber stamp. And it's not like, oh, we have 3 people that like it and I really don't like it because A, B, C, D. I'll speak my mind and ask those type of questions, the kind that people don't really want to know or answer.
Yeah. Okay. Those are the good ones generally.
My question was really follow-up to, or really similar to yours, Elizabeth's. But yeah, just based on it says 2005 to 2020, you served on the committee, so that's a really long time.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised in retirement that you want to jump back into it, especially given everything
I have-
kind of post-COVID now. Who knows, kind of.
I have more time now.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Right,
But yeah, I was just curious if there's anything during your 15 years, was there anything that you look back on that you would do differently, or a policy that you didn't agree with, or if you were to get on the new committee, would you do something different?
I think that at that time, the ATAX committee, use of ATAX funds wasn't widely known, and that you can come and ask for it and present a case, because we didn't have that many cases. That made it to the committee, came to the committee, then it went to the board. Now that people are getting more savvy and seeing how things can, and that they do have this, internet is a great thing, and it's a horrible thing. So I think now would be a different venue than what we had before, because as I said, we did not have, we come into a meeting, there would be no requests for anything. And then there would be some that was like, no, you can't have a marching band. We're not gonna let you do that out here.
What is your, being on the committee, the 30% money that has to go to a marketing organization, DMO. What's your, you probably have heard there's been some talk about whether we should change or do something different with that 30% money.
To get another vendor to,
Yeah, what's your thoughts around that?
it's something that would be, probably needs to be looked at. If we've been with the same vendor for a length of time, is it really, are we getting our most bang for our buck? Is it really coming down to saying, yes, we are looking at our needs, not the needs of another community if they do this certain thing, that a neighboring committee would get some exposure, maybe more exposure than what we're getting, so why should we pay for the other community's exposure? So it's something that would have to be looked at hard. Should we? Possibly. Change is good in a scary way, but it can be done, and it can be seamless.
You don't have any, this is an at-large bid or position. As you know, some of them require hospitality, or have some
Lodging.
different
Right.
lodging, but you don't have rental property or do
No, sir.
anything, business on the island or anything like
No,
that?
sir, not any, nope. Like I said, my parents had it, but that was, that was gone.
Yeah.
They sold that. They sold that just because of all the changes on the island that were happening.
Okay. All right.
Are you aware of the element of the state statute that allows a municipality to withhold or to utilize excess funds in a calendar year for beach renourishment and preservation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, what are your thoughts on that, and maybe where you think the island might move, or if they should move towards perhaps maybe not promoting as much tourism and looking to save some money in a beach renourishment fund.
It would be nice if we could not promote tourism as heavily as we do, but that's also a detriment because that's our livelihood out here. So it's a really narrow street. Beach renourishment, it should be looked at and studied. I mean, I've been here a long time. I have seen areas of the beach that have gone from being very wide to being very narrow, and we're coming to that point now towards the Breach Inlet area where it's very narrow. I don't think it should be given to just everybody and anybody, because is it going to, the beach creeds, depending upon how the tides are going, how the sandbars and things like that. So if we do it just without thinking about it, without planning about it, and looking to see what are the long-term effects, it may be a waste of funds to do it because it's going to get washed out every 3 months or every 6 months, and we're having to rebuild and redo. Maybe it's not the best place for a residence to be put or a business to be established. You have to understand that the beach is not under our control. We can't stop anything from happening. Can we prevent it? Maybe, depending upon how it's hitting and why it's hitting. But I've seen a lot of erosion going on, and then I've seen where the beach has grown back too. So you want to wait 20 years or not? It's that's one of those type of things. There's no right or wrong, and there's no fast answer.
I think the rationale perhaps from the state is that, if that is our tourism draw, if the beach is why people are here, they would then allow us to use some of those funds to keep it as wide as possible, even though it probably is a losing battle. But so I was just curious about your thoughts on that. So thank you for sharing them.
And we also have to understand, the community needs to understand that the beach is not owned by any one individual. It is the island's beach. It is the community's beach. It's our beach. And saying that you have a stronger right is not conducive to your neighbors, maybe.
Have anything else?
I was just wanted to follow up on your past comment. I just want to clarify. Did you say that your position is that the 30%, you think that can be changed or amended that we give to the TVB?
Anything can be changed or amended. Is it something that's going to be beneficial to us to give them more? Maybe we should do that. Is it going to be beneficial for us to save those funds, give them less, and use those funds in another place or another area? The CVV has been with us for a long time. Are we getting most bang for the buck from them? What other companies are out there that have that? Would they ask for more, like 32%, but they would give us more coverage or more exposure? It was hard to say. Should it be changed? I don't know. I'm flat straight out. I haven't looked at it and I haven't researched it. It would have to be, what can they do for us and how soon can they do it? Just because you make a change to a new company, that doesn't mean that you're going to see immediate results right then and there, because there'll be learning curves to go through and to see how it's going to affect us.
Desiree, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it true, I mean, I might be wrong, but is the CVB the only company that we can donate to, or not donate, but, give
So-
the 30%?
So state statute establishes that you have to select a regional marketing organization that has an ongoing tourism promotion program. And so far, the Explore Charleston is the only organization in the area that meets that qualification. If another entity exists, that they would have to prove that they have an ongoing successful tourism promotion program. And at that point, I think the city would be able to consider changing or splitting it and using two direct marketing organizations. But our research, when we started looking at this, yielded that the Explore Charleston was the only one that was currently available. So their changes would require changes in state law, which if they're agreeable, then
Yeah,
that could be the case.
yeah. And we did hire Chandra, who
Yes.
works with the CUB and now for Isle of Palms. So she's working on, I guess, getting more exposure for Isle of Palms and
Yes, ma'am.
family oriented. Okay. Just wanted to see if there was another, organization that I hadn't heard of. I know Folly does like their own DMOs, are correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Would that even be a possibility for Isle of Palms?
We have been advised that it wouldn't, be,
Okay.
that it would not be consistent with state law.
Okay. Oh, well, that's all I have.
You got anything else?
No, but,
All right, I think that's it.
All right,
But we
well,
sure appreciate the time and the
Thank
prior
you.
service.
Well, I
Yes, thank
appreciate your considering me again, once again, to join the committee.
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
welcome to retirement.
Nice seeing you too.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are. Hello. Good.
Can we sit here?
Sure.
Okay.
All righty. So, thank you very much for submitting your application.
Thank you
hanging
for
in there.
having me.
Yeah, we appreciate your being here. John, you want to start off with any
Sure.
questions?
Yeah, well, thanks for coming in. What makes you interested in the ATAX committee?
Well, some years ago, I started understanding how the money flows, right? From the state and CVB's involvement. And, me as a resident had questions. And, I'm interested in why the state can dictate how that money is utilized.
You're
right?
talking about the 30%
Yeah,
money that's
yeah.
used for advertising?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Probably the biggest thing is, I'm 53, 52 actually. And I've got a lot of energy and I want to serve. I want to serve the community. And so I've got a small property management company on the island, me and my wife. We've been here 10 years and didn't plan on having it or starting it, but we did. And so I've got, that piece as well. But what I really care about is the next generation, right? So I'm a firm believer in what we do with funds and opportunities and situations, that's gonna have a lasting impact. And mainly that I'm thankful for the people that came before me, so I could have a great place to raise my kids. That's the main driver.
So just as a follow-up on the 30%, your thoughts are that we should be looking at something other than CVB to give that 30% for advertising and marketing?
Potentially, I mean, if we have an in-house solution that's more effective, then I think we should certainly pursue that. And if we don't quite have that baked out, there needs to be potentially more accountability on, if it's 1.1 million CVB, I mean, what are we doing with that funds? I think it's more than, I got X amount of clicks last month to a website, right? I believe that our businesses and lodging, hospitality, restaurants, we can't gauge the effectiveness of those funds through CVB because their sales are up or down. So, I just think that there probably are some really good examples on this coast, South Carolina coast, where municipalities are handling that themselves. Yeah, so I don't know.
So you don't prescribe to the theory that a rising tide raises all boats?
No, I don't.
That's CVB's
Yeah,
philosophy.
no, I don't. I don't. I mean, we don't have to look far. Greenville, Columbia, Myrtle Beach, Folly, Kiowa, I mean, they're all unique. So one model can't fit all. It just can't.
I'll come back.
Ms. Miller had an interesting comment in her interview about making sure that the tourism that we do bring is good for the nature of our island and kind of who we are, and that there would be, or could certainly be, requests that would come in front of your committee, or just things generally that aren't. Have you seen anything in the last that you were really excited about them supporting, or conversely, things that you thought, what in the world why would they do that? And if you don't, it's fine. I mean, not everybody's in the weeds on the
No, I mean,
ATAX
the
committee.
only thing there's two things. I mean, it feels like to me a portion of our dollars goes to support Charleston, not Isle of Palms. So I don't know, right? I'm not gonna call out Seawee or the Bridge Run or something like that, because there is collaboration there. But when you asked the question, I immediately thought of the kids triathlon that Lynn's just put on, right? CVB didn't have anything to do with that, but that is an example of something that is home. And, dollars spent at home. Did we get more restaurant sales and lodging through it? Probably not, but that's just something kind of top of mind for me right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do feel like a portion of whatever the number is, 1.1, goes to maybe Kiowa or the peninsula in some way. Because it's not IOP specific marketing is done with that. Yeah.
Ashley, do you have anything? Can you just talk a little bit about are you still currently employed at Eastern Power Technologies?
I am, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious about
Yeah.
what that job entails, and I guess how you think your previous work experience might help you in this position.
Yeah. Eastern is a family-owned business based out of Greenville. I manage our federal government sales team and our e-commerce strategy. I've got a team of 4 people on each of those teams, and I do it remotely from my house here. So I started in that industry right out of college, just kind of fell into it. The career experience that I bring to the table is probably everything underneath that on my resume. So the Granger, the Fortune 500, where, I was a sales guy, but my specialty was government and also channel utilization, so channel sales. And in channel sales, you utilize the strengths of your team to support a particular customer base, broad customer base, similar to what would happen with ATAX funds coming from the state to support, your local community. Very, very similar in those two. I've also managed, large teams and large pots of money. So I think, my ability to hold the team accountable and all kind of paddle in the same direction is probably a skill set that, the committee could benefit from.
I want to go back to your vision, I guess, of tourism for the island. It's kind of a follow-up, I think, to what Elizabeth asked, and I just want to dig maybe a layer deeper on.
Sure.
Do you think that, let's just take it for the moment that 30% of whatever we generate has to go to marketing. So
Sure.
you're gonna advertise for tourism on the island.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that should be channeled in any specific way?
So
In other
to-
words, is all tourism good for the island, or what, is more the better? So
No.
what's your philosophy around tourism specifically for the Isle of Palms?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't want to talk about, demographics necessarily. I believe personally, this is a family vacation spot during certain months of the year. I don't believe this is a spring break destination. I question how valuable maybe day trippers are to the overall health of the island, right? I'm not saying they're not, but they're certainly welcome. This is their beach as well. But in terms of who we attract, I think people vote with their pocketbooks. And I do think we have some control over that mix of folks. You don't have to look very far to COVID years to realize that we had some influence in that. So I'd hate to say, well, only people who can spend X need to be visiting our island. But I do think that if we market and channel the funds around family vacations, that we would be helping ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you.
That's difficult,
It's,
but-
it's something that we, as you know, we're sharing a resource. We added a resource that we share with CVB. They pay part, we pay part. And part of that effort was to start branding the island as more of a family vacation island. We want families to come here. We don't want bachelorette parties, spring breakers, those type of things. Because they usually stay longer. They usually spend money on the island, not just shack up here and then head to Charleston, to, the bars and then back here at 2 a.m. and raise ruckus. But, just generally, that's the kind of atmosphere, kind of brand we want to put forth to as far as the island goes. But I think that, as a build on that question, I think something that Elizabeth asked, I want to ask, there's potentially certain part of that money could go towards beach renourishment.
Are you taking my question?
Yes. Were you gonna ask
That's
it?
my next question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You'll do it better than
It's her question.
fumble all around, it's fine.
I mean,
Hit it.
do you support something like that? I didn't know if you were gonna ask it, so that's why I'm asking.
We'll beat them up after the meeting.
Do you support
It's a team
that?
effort.
That, no, in other words, some of that ATAX money could go towards beach renourishment. Certainly without a beach, we don't have tourism. So is that something you would support, or you
Yeah,
see issues with?
No, I don't see any issues with that at all. I mean, I think in some way, maybe that's done today, isn't it? Or
Not
no?
the ATAX money.
Not specifically,
No.
yeah.
There's a separate fund,
Fund,
tax.
yeah,
There's 1% that goes
Okay,
specifically
yeah.
towards the beach renourishment. This
Yeah.
would be,
This would be from the 2%.
Dedicated,
Yeah,
yeah.
the state
Yeah,
tax.
I mean, it would have to be. I mean, isn't that our most precious kind of resource? That is the driver. People don't say, I want to go stay on an island. They say, I want to go to the beach.
yeah.
So, yeah, I absolutely would be for that. As long as it, was pointed in the right places, whether it would be, some environmental effort or specifically beach renourishment. Yeah, I think we owe the island that.
Okay.
Right? And I think the visitors probably expect that of us, right? I question what's gonna happen on this end, this summer. I mean,
This month.
right, but really, before the work is done and we see a spike in renters,
Yeah.
at some point, some property managers are gonna be in a position where they have to say, oh, sorry, we will discount, or
Yeah.
we didn't tell you, or we should have told you, And so it's gonna get messy, and I think, to your question, you know, we have a role in that. Yeah, for sure.
A comment that you made earlier made me think of a question. So you, in your mind, we have kind of a beach season, and for families that you're thinking would be a good, presumably, there would be an off-season. I know that the focus of the CVB recently has been, off-season visitation, what they deem to be off-season, and, what do they call it?
Yeah,
It's-
off-season.
The secret season.
Secret season, that's what they, yes, secret
Did
season.
not know that.
Yeah,
Yes,
and so,
there is.
Secret season.
you hear that and you think, well, okay, gosh, so now it'll be from February until, January, and then but so in your mind, could you just speak to that about the seasonal aspect of
Yeah.
tourism and what you think that means for this community?
Yeah, I really don't think you can control it in at what I will call the off-season. I think there is a calendar of time when you have to promote to get what you expect in the busier months. Fall is busy, right? I don't know that there's any amount of money you could spend to get full capacity or higher rates in January and February.
Yeah. Or would you want to?
Or would you want to? I mean, everybody needs a breather. The land needs a breather. I just don't know if that's good for the island as a whole, to push the envelope on something that
Feels like it's already stuffed full?
yeah, right? It'd be different if we were saying we need revenue or we need more, if the restaurants were saying, we can't make it, but no one's saying that. Me personally, I love to see them come and I love to see them leave, right? You can almost mark it by the day. So I think we as residents and the island as a whole we get tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's healthy to have a break.
Ashley, you have anything else?
If I could ask a
Sure.
personal question,
Yeah.
that you mentioned, do you raise kids on the island?
Yes.
How old are they, and are they still raising kids? I mean, I
Yeah,
guess we're always
yeah.
raising kids,
Yeah.
but
Well, I'm feeling that part of it.
yeah. And
Always.
a follow-up to that, just what kind of other, you mentioned you wanted to give back to the community, and can you speak to any things that you have participated in that you particularly enjoyed?
Yeah. So my wife and I don't know, 28 years we've been married, but one of our early in marriage goals was live at the beach, and that we didn't have any context around it, but we lived in Long Point subdivision in Mount Pleasant for 15 years, and we had some kind of life events happen, and the family was hurting, and we just kind of ripped off the band-aids and we're doing it, and we were nervous, very nervous. Is this going to work? Can we make ends meet? Are we spending too much money? And I laugh about that looking back. But then our kids were, I think, 10 and 8 maybe. So Eliza's graduating from USC next year. She was moving to Nashville as a result of working at Poppy's. Right? She's going to work in the music industry, and that never would have happened had she not been a hostess at Poppy's. And my son Whit has worked at Islander and now works at Obstinate Daughter. He's 17. So we'll be empty nesting soon.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, yeah. What was the second part, actually?
Just speaking your community involvement.
Oh, yeah. So I'm serving on the Chamber of Commerce currently as the president. That's a 1-year term. So that'll be over quickly, 9 months. Other things I've done the beach cleanup. I try to be as involved as I can be where there's opportunity. But those are probably the two biggest ones that recently.
Rod, do you feel like there's a conflict with you being the president of the chamber? As you know, they come forward to ask for money from this committee that
Yeah.
they're being on. and
Yeah, I've thought
I'd like
about
your
that.
thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I've thought about that. You know, I think that's for you guys to decide. I don't, you know, I think how we spend the money is probably a bigger topic. And I think if anything, I can have, and at least over the next 9 months, have some impact on, making sure that those funds are spent appropriately on the right things. And that we're all in agreement on, you know, kind of the end product. As I understand it, we got 10,000 the last 2 years, and that is supposed to be spent on something to support tourism or the island, the betterment of the island. So that can mean a lot of things, right? And I think the last thing we want to do is use those funds in a way that, you know, we can all kind of nod at. So I don't think there would be a conflict from my perspective, because I would need to be good steward of that money and facilitator, you know? So I think there would be, from my perspective, more alignment. Now, perception, you know, I can't speak to that, but I would hope that you guys feel comfortable about, you know, whether or not there was a conflict. But from my perspective personally, no. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions? All right, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
all.
much for your time. We
Okay.
appreciate it.
Y'all have a good
Thanks, Rob.
evening and
You too.
almost weekend, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
God.
All right.
See ya.
See you, Desiree.
Bye.
So we do not have an executive session on the agenda in order to discuss these new candidates. And I'm happy to,
Can we go? Can we change the agenda?
The only challenge I could see is you would be taking action after adding the item to the agenda, and the rules would mean, you know, there would have to be exigent circumstances to add an item to the agenda that requires action. I don't think that this would be raised to that level. If you all would prefer to have this conversation in executive session, we could schedule or have this scheduled for your next meeting in April, or have a special meeting, or you could certainly have the discussion openly about if there's a candidate that you would prefer for this role. It's really up to you all.
I think we could probably get through it if you have a candidate you prefer.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I've been noodling over is the type of seat that we have open, which is an at-large seat, and I understand the need for balance and, you know, the intention of the state law that wrote it in a way that provides these different types of seats available to people. And, you know, the one we have open right now is an at-large seat. And I think Mr. Turnage gave a great interview, and I think he'd be fabulous in the lodging seat, because he's a, you know, property manager. But, I mean, I just would, to me, I'm kind of I'm a firstborn rule follower, and if it's at large, I would like it to be at large.
I don't disagree. I think they're both really, really good candidates, and they both gave good interviews. That is a good reason, and I think also it would give maybe an opportunity of, assuming that Mr. Turnage remains interested in the next opening that occurs, that maybe his president role on the chamber would fall off as well, which would eliminate that kind of a conflict potentially. So, I mean, I'd be fine with going and recommending Margaret Miller.
The two lodging seats have been reappointed earlier this year by council, and those will become available at the end of 2026 because of the 2-year term.
But people
So-
leave.
Yeah, unless somebody resigns, which we, you know,
That
unfortunately
committee-
happens all the
That
time.
committee has been a very
Porous.
dynamic committee.
Ashley, you have any thoughts? Or
Just kind of echo basically your sentiments, both of yours, so not much more to add.
Well,
I make a motion that we nominate to bring to the council Margaret Miller to fill the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee opening.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to appoint Margaret Miller and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay.
Sorry,
No, that's quite all right. I know it is, I can tell. Okay, so the motion carries. Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller. I do hope he stays in the mix, though. Okay, next item on the agenda, discussion of City Code Section 1313, which regulates public participation during council meetings. So there's a red line of a,
Yes, at our last meeting, we discussed, you all wanted to see a red line version of the proposed ordinance with the changes discussed. I took a stab at the red line that you see in your packet on page, I think it's page 13, on page 13 of the packet. What I've done is eliminate subsection E, which required speakers to focus and limit their comments to a matter that specifically on the agenda. And then at the top, I added, and this was modeled after the city of Charleston's, I added that speakers may not pass his or her allotted time to another speaker. Doesn't happen often, but we've had it in the past, and that just becomes very difficult for us to track, for us and the city clerk to track. So I went ahead and added that for your consideration. Also added subsection B, which requires speakers to identify themselves by providing their name, address. That will help us decide how the order by which they would be speaking, which is the other subsection that the committee wanted to see. Speakers who reside, own property, or maintain a business license with the Isle of Palm shall speak first. So those are the only changes that were made to that red line.
So on this subsection C, we're not saying that we chronologically go in that. It's just anybody within those groupings go first. Anybody outside of those groupings would go next. We're not trying to say, okay. I think that makes it a lot easier especially for like Nicole to kind of go through that. But I don't think there's a problem there with just saying, look, if you're one of those three categories, you're gonna go first.
You're at the
People
top
that
of the line.
not in those categories would go, if there's time remaining.
And I think that the way
Yeah, I
it's
think that's
written
the way
would
it's written
allow
is
for
that,
that.
yeah,
If the goal is to have an order, then we can expand that subsection to say they will speak in this order, those who reside first and those who own property, but may not be necessary, I think, to your point, John.
Yeah.
I think that just protecting, and, again, we can always extend at the
Sure.
council level beyond the 30 minutes, but I think protecting the resident property owners and business people and by pushing them kind of to the front of the line is a good policy. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not sure how often, frankly, people who are not property owners, business owners, or residents speak, but, it could happen. So I think during COVID, we had a lot of that. It was on Zoom, but it wasn't, they weren't in here, but still, I like that. So, yeah.
What do we want to do? Are we bringing this to the workshop? Is that the plan? Or are we bringing it to council?
If you all want to make a recommendation and are ready to push it before council, we can include it at the council meeting on Tuesday for discussion, and then get a feel for any additional changes that other council members would like to see before it's finalized in an ordinance form presented to council for first reading. So that would be, the next step would be a working session with council.
Yeah, I'm fine the way it's written, personally.
Ashley, you have any thoughts?
I'm just curious, everything looks fine on here, but when they submit their, I guess they have to submit that they're gonna speak beforehand. Would that be when they indicate where they live or what they do? And then y'all would put together the order, or is it like whoever shows up first here and
No, they
signs a
have-
list?
They have to email Nicole before 3 o'clock business day prior to the meeting.
Okay. And-
We send them the rules as stated in the code, and Nicole typically puts together a list in the order that the requests were received. So
Okay.
if we change it based on this, if they don't provide that information, she would ask, are you a property owner, or resident, or business owner? And then put the list in that order.
Okay, sounds good.
And then they will be called during the meeting in the order that you would put together.
I noticed a few little, I think you've got a few little typos. But in B, I kind of like the city of Charleston's language, where, they're pretty fully identifying themselves. I'm not certain we need to drop it all the way down to the zip code level, but, address, it could be, street and city, or, state. Or
generally all they say
is that what they say?
And then there's people that are very cautious about that, and they'll just say, I'm a full-time resident, and they're just cautious about giving out their address, and they'll just say, I'm a full-time resident.
Yeah, but so if we're adding this to B, they're gonna be saying their address.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to be more specific, street, address, house number,
Yeah,
we can, but I don't,
I think we'll just leave it at address,
Yeah.
actually. I don't wanna make anybody uncomfortable or discourage them from speaking if they feel like they.
yeah. I think people who live on the Owl Palms are very proud to live on the island, and they usually will share it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I wasn't sure, just from a procedural standpoint, when it just says discussion, that means we can still recommend.
Correct.
Whoa,
Oh, yeah, you can recommend because it goes to the workshop.
Got
So
it.
you can make a motion to recommend. You're not taking final action on a matter.
okay, well, I like it. I like our little tiny changes here.
So you want us to vote on taking it to the,
We don't have to.
No,
I
I
mean,
mean,
if
just
y'all
take it
are
to
in,
the-
yeah, if
just
you're
take
all
it
in
to the
agreement
10th.
with it, we'll add it to the agenda for
Yeah.
Tuesday for
Yeah,
discussion.
I think we like it. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, discussion of city code section 5-4-138D, which regulates placement of political signs in the public right-of-way. So we have, well, what do we have? We have a list of surrounding communities and what they do, and then, is that all, that's all we got? I printed the
Yes.
code, but.
yeah,
The first section in that sheet on page 15 includes the city's section, appropriate section on political and campaign signs. The committee didn't make any recommendation of wanting to change it at your last meeting. I think there was a call out to folks who may have some thoughts about the changes, and you certainly encourage people to reach out to the committee with any thoughts. I think maybe some have done that, but we've not made any changes, any red lines, just waiting for direction from the committee, how you wanted to pursue that.
Two have done that, so thank you, Krista. Thank you, Stuart. Those are the only two emails I got. But I just wanted to start this discussion by reading the intent of the sign article itself. The entire law exists to establish limitations on signs and to ensure that they're appropriate to the land, building, or use to which they are appurtenant, that's always one that gets me, and are adequate but not excessive for their intended purpose. Any display of off-premises signs considered inappropriate to the care, any display of off-premises outdoor advertising is considered inappropriate to the character and proper development of the city. So, we're kind of setting the table here to limit fairly significantly, it seems, signs that are even, not even outside, that are outside the right-of-way. As you go further into the code section, that are standards that are applicable to all signs, whether they're temporary, like a political sign, or if they're a rental home advertisement or a for sale sign. No signs shall be erected or displayed in a public right-of-way. And, where they are, they need, when they're somewhere else, outside the right-of-way, they've got to be 5 feet back, which provides, an adequate line of sight for public safety. Moving on Then we get to the temporary sign section, which is where our political sign, this is where this little blurb came from. Following types of signs are classified as temporary and are allowed as follows. And then we go through this list of signs that are allowed. Again, none of them, I don't believe, are allowed in the public right-of-way until we get to political campaign signs. And, you know, to me, this list that you've given us, I mean, there are 7 communities here, and we're the only one that allows it. And I'm in favor of pulling them out of the right-of-way and putting them onto people's private property, and then we know, you know, that it's more in line with the intent of the ordinance that it was intending to support.
I guess Sullivan, am I correct in that Sullivan's does allow it, except they're 10 feet off the right-of-way? Is that right?
Yep, correct.
Swans doesn't allow it
Yeah,
in the
What's that?
right-of-way.
they're not in the right-of-way.
don't
They have to be
allow it
10
in the
feet off.
right-of-way.
10 feet off the right-of-way?
Yeah.
They have, so it has to be 10 feet.
Yeah, onto their
and-
private property.
Yeah, so it's 10 feet out of the street right-of-way line.
I got
It
it.
is worded a little weird.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
thought 10 feet
No, yeah,
From
it's-
the edge of the road.
from the edge of the road, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's from the end of the right-of-way.
Okay.
I was confused too. When I first saw it, I said, oh, they allow it within 10 feet
Yeah.
of the right-of-way.
No,
but it's-
it's
sounds like that.
weirdly worded.
I mean, because that's one thing, I was thinking if we could, it would really severely limit the places that you could put a sign on the right-of-way if you did say 10 feet off the, I mean, from the edge of the right-of-way, right?
I think you're thinking edge of the road pavement.
Yeah,
Which is
or,
different than the right of way.
correct.
Usually, like on Palm Boulevard, the right-of-way is 20 feet, no, 50 feet, I'm sorry, from the
Well-
middle of the road, so 20 feet.
Let's just go
from the
Palm
edge.
Boulevard from, say, 22nd to 41st there, you know, that section. You can't put signs on that right away because there's parking there, except on the corners. And if you said 10 feet from the road, it would really limit where you could put it on the corners. I'm just trying to get, I've heard all sides of this story, of this, and many people feel like it's just a complete waste of resources and contributes to littering, and the amount of signs that we had, especially at this last election, was just obnoxious. And then to others that say, well, we should, you know, there's just some value in allowing for political, those candidates to run to get, you know, to get their name and get some exposure. But I think most of the people I've talked to said that, you know, they'd lean towards at least limiting significantly the signs that are put up. Unfortunately, we can't put a number on that because no one's gonna go out and count signs, say, oh yeah, you've over the limit. You couldn't enforce that, so it's kind of a bit of a mixed bag, but if I was, you know, forced to make a decision at this point, I'd probably lean towards getting them out of the right-of-ways and putting them in people's yards, in private property.
You know, this last election, you're right, this last election cycle was, I mean, I think everybody would agree, was excessive. We had exceeded these limitations that were reasonable. And, you know, it occurred to me on the drive here, really, that as I was driving to work or into Mount Pleasant or anything during our election season, you know, it was just a melee here, and then I would cross the bridge and drive, and I thought, well, are they not having an election in Mount Pleasant this year? Like, where are all theirs? Well, they don't have them out. You know, and it really is, it's kind of it is a bit of a catch-22 for sure, but, you know, it was also more in keeping, frankly, I think, with just the intent of the code, and, you know, it's the only sign that we allow to be accepted from our, I mean, how many pages is this? I mean, we've got a hefty sign ordinance that we then exclude for this one purpose, or we, you know, eliminate this one purpose. So I just, you know, I'm with John to the extent that I wish there was some way to limit it, to just limit it beyond eliminating it, but I don't know how you would do that. So, I mean, if I had to err one way. I would rather kind of fall in line with our neighboring communities and just exclude them from the public right-of-ways that people who are putting these signs, like, I don't own that land that I'm putting my own campaign sign on. I don't manage it, I don't take care of it, you know, it's not my dirt to do what I want to with it. And so, but, you know, if I've got a neighbor that wants to support me and put my sign in their yard, then, you know, it would not be the elimination of signs entirely, it would just be a more focused kind of placement of them. I'm not even sure that helps, but. You got anything?
Sorry. So a couple of things. You know, the few residents that did email the two, it was Krista and Josh, actually. I think you
Oh,
said
it was? Okay.
somebody else. Unless, okay, I didn't get Stuart too.
Oh, yeah, so three, that's Josh.
Yeah, I didn't get Stuart's. But they both indicated that, you know, they didn't see a need for a change. And, you know, Josh is a lawyer and had some, you know, questions about whether that was
Constitutional
legal or
rights,
not, freedom of speech and things like that. So those are just things to consider. But also, since we last met, I talked with a couple of council members in other municipalities that have those restrictions, and I just asked, you know, what their thoughts were, and they actually said that they wished it were different and that they wished that they were allowed. And one of the members, I mean, he's served on council for, you know, I think 10 or 15 years, maybe longer, but I mean, he's got a history, and I was actually surprised that he stated that he would actually prefer to have the ability to put a sign in a right-of-way. So it was just an interesting perspective that I thought I would share. And then, you know, just one idea, I have no idea how possible this is, and it's probably a huge headache, but as opposed to counting the number of signs, if there was a way to state it so that you didn't have a duplicate sign within X number of feet, or if you were allowed to put like one sign per block, or, you know, if you were allowed to word it that way. I mean, of course, we don't want to make more work for our city.
That would be
I mean,
the
just to go-
challenge, that there would be, once there's something in the code, there's gonna be an expectation that the city's enforcing that. And I just don't, I don't know how realistic it would be.
Yeah.
It would be a full-time job, just
Yeah.
keeping track of every single day, what new signs are put up, what, you know, if they've been moved, if they were put in the same place, and we just don't have the bandwidth to do that. So that would be my only concern, just encourage
agree.
you all to not consider a change to the code that creates a unrealistic expectation of how it's gonna be enforced with the community.
I mean, we're really, you know, lucky in a lot of ways on Isle of Palms. We have a very engaged community in our city and in our political process, more so than other municipalities. From what I understand, our voter turnout is really high, and we have a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds that offer a lot of, you know, great insight. So I don't know, I think limiting the signs takes away from that engagement potentially with the community.
Yeah, I would think too. I mean, that's a good point, and I think we are a lot more engaged than other communities. But that to me almost says that we don't really need the sign. I mean, people are very engaged. I mean, they know they're talking to their people, they're reaching out to their candidates. There's social media all over the place. You know, and again, it isn't an elimination of signs. It's just that we're not putting them in public rights of way. And I do remember Josh's email now, and I thought about that for a while, and I'm just not sure that anything gives me the right to put a piece of property that I bought into somebody else's property, you know, for a 30-day period for political purposes. I'm not certain that's a right that we would necessarily be stepping on.
Yeah, I don't think there's any issues with their rights, but how do you enforce if we said we didn't want them in the right of ways? There's other elections other than city elections. I mean, I see, you know, you can have Trump and Biden signs out there. You can have, there's school boards, when school boards elections are, school board signs, there's county council, there's state elections. And if people are putting signs out in the right of ways, is there a fine associated with it? Or are you just gonna, city just gonna go and pick them up? Or what's the enforcement, mechanism?
If there's a prohibition, it would take us knowing or seeing our code enforcement officer seeing somebody putting the signs up for them to be able to issue a citation. What happens now is our building official or code enforcement just removes the signs.
So that would be the enforcement essentially, because they could be put in the dark at night or whatever, nobody sees them, and then, so they're gonna go around and pick them up and take them out.
Yes, sir.
And John, it's not just municipal elections. I mean, the Biden and Trump signs are also exempt. So the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
same would
the
apply.
same- Sometimes it's tough for us to know a sign shows up and, we don't even know that. We go look at the, election site to see, oh, well, there is something within 30 days. So it does catch us off guard. Generally, I will say that local folks
If you speak here.
are very good about compliance.
Yeah.
It's always been the case that, and then as the candidate gets farther from the island, enforcement is more and more challenging. Council members, they're fantastic. Not just saying that to you all.
And the signs go away pretty quick.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, we never have an issue with the council member signs, but it's, the national elections, they'll sit out there until
We pick
the
them up.
staff deals with it.
Well, I guess we can continue to bring this up
Well,
and
that's what I
think
was-
about it. And there's no sense of urgency to go make some ordinance change at this point, because other than the election in November coming up, I don't think there's any other elections. So it's not like we need to make a decision today on this. And I'd be in favor of just considering to think about it, get input from people, and then over the next maybe couple months, bring it to council.
We're kind of interested to see, I don't know if that was an anomaly it does seem like there's always a lot of signs. This election, there was just an overwhelming number of signs.
There was.
And I don't know if that's an anomaly, and we'll go back to kind of, still a lot, but not as many as this last.
I mean, I think that the issue with the referendum, that was what
It just
maybe
pumped up.
duplicated the amount of signs we typically see. I would suggest, just having not making a recommendation, but encouraging a conversation with council to see if there is even general consensus
I
in
think
going down that path.
Yeah.
And if there is not, then, we don't,
Yeah.
the committee doesn't spend more time talking about it if ultimately the
Yeah, I would
larger
agree. Yeah, I
body
think
would
that's
not.
Are you okay with
Yeah, I'm
that?
fine.
I mean, that's, yeah. I would think that that's
So,
probably
Yeah,
good.
bringing it up in the workshop. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't really see
Yeah.
any
We've pretty
further
much said all
discussion.
we're gonna
Yeah,
do.
I mean, so
We
what
know where
else
we
can
all
you say
are.
about it?
Maybe, yeah. No, I think that's a good path. And like you say, maybe nobody, well, at least one person that asked us to take this up will
Yeah.
hopefully have some things to say, but you never know. So, okay, so we're gonna make a recommendation that moves that to a workshop committee
Okay.
agenda. Okay, new business, review of FY 25 operational budget for mayor and council, general government, building and court.
All right, so I'll go through the budget for those four groups at a very high level, unless you have any specific questions. I'll touch on those big, the changes that are different from FY 24, and generally what's driving some of the increases in our operations. Under mayor and council, you can see a big jump with health insurance, and that's due to, that changes. It depends on how many council members select to participate in the city's group health insurance. So we have more people participating this year than in the past, so that's why you'll see a jump there. And then the only changes, insurance, this is something that we're seeing impacted in every single department. Insurance rates for the city have gone up almost 25%, and that's mainly due to property values increasing. Payroll insurance is increased by 19%. our equipment values have increased by about 7%, 6% for our property values. So we're seeing just a jump, a pretty significant increase there. I think I mentioned it as one of the previous committee meetings. We're working with our insurance company that's covered by the municipal association to evaluate whether or not it would be beneficial for the city to raise our deductible. It's currently $5,000, and see how that would impact our premium rates. Oh, Deborah,
golly.
I forgot I was supposed to text her when we
just
were gonna
rolling
talk
on
about the
without you,
budget. She was probably listening
I
upstairs.
was probably relieved.
We can't get it past Deborah.
I know, Deborah is on it. Thank you, Deborah, I'm sorry. So yeah, overall insurance rates are much higher, and you'll see that across every department. Citizen and employee services, we increased that line item by $500, and that is to cover increasing the amount of a gift card that we provide every employee during Thanksgiving. It helps people when they're buying their turkey and their stuff. So for years it has been $50, so we're just increasing it to $60. We can increase it even more if there's a desire to, but it's something that's very well appreciated by the staff.
Why is that under the mayor and council?
Well, it's I
A gift
think
from
it-
council?
Yeah. Who knew?
I think it's, that we've had that line, citizen and employee services, and I don't know, it's one of those things, it's always been that way, John. And here are just some, meetings and seminars. That's what covers you all attending conferences and staying over if it's, out of the area. Telephone and cable, it covers your cell phones, the iPad service, and all that. All right, we did see an increase in meetings and seminars, if you compare our actuals for FY '23, higher than budget. We didn't increase the budget because it really depends on, people's availability and willingness and to participate in those meetings.
Got it.
I think I did mention health insurance is also up. It's up by 11.8%. And that's just the general increase that we receive from PIBA. There will be an experience modifier that's based on our claims that will be added to that. We don't have that number yet, and we will have it. We expect to have that later this month. Just for comparison, last year, our experience modifier was 3.8. So we would be looking at something similar. But that would need to be added to the budget once we have it. Right now,
That's
it does not.
percent?
Yes, sir. For general government, I'll just, again, highlight a few of the changes. Not a whole lot changing from last year. Payroll certainly impacted, and this is based on the adjustments that City Council approved and went into effect this year. It also includes 12 months of a position we added last year for just 6 months of a financial analyst that would join the finance director position. So that's,
Do you still feel like we need that position?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The plan was to have, the finance director role filled for, several months, kind of get, Deborah used to it and fully immersed before we fully articulate what that would look like. But there is a lot of reconciliation and a lot of work that we would like to do with the state and with Charleston County in trying to make sure that we're maximizing all of our revenues, and that would be enough work for somebody to tack on, in addition to a lot of other things that we could be doing.
So right now, we're just doing that as we find time?
That's right, or not doing it.
We're not doing it all, okay.
Let me see. An increase from last year is the CityBot resident engagement tool. We spent some money this year in getting it going. There's an annual expense associated with that service. Last year was $15,000, so that goes down to $11,000. We've also included $4,000 for an incentive fit program, and that's something that our HR office is working on with our staff, and that's just getting people engaged and excited about doing healthy challenges, getting people to walk and utilize our fitness equipment and fitness facilities. And if people meet a certain threshold, they get a $25 gift card at the end of the quarter. So I was surprised at how many people are using it and getting engaged with their teams by working on it.
Can I ask a question about health insurance again?
Yes, sir.
It seems like that 84,000 is beyond the PIBA increase and experience modifiers, or something else driving that?
For council?
No, for general government.
So remember that's also, so it's based on the new rates.
Yeah, but, I mean, if we're budgeted for 60 and we're running on a 12-month basis at 50, if you took even 15% of that, you're talking about another 10,000, which would put you at 70. We're at 85 in there. Is there something? You see what I'm talking about on line 10?
You're looking at our FY '24 budget
Well,
of
I'm looking-
60.
Yeah, 60, and we're running 50 actually, January through, on a 12-month basis. But even take the 60 and you take 15% of that, that's what, 9,000? So it's 69,000, and you have 84 in there. It's just, I don't know what's driving that increase, but it's something we should probably
We'll
look
look
at.
at that.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. That's really, there's nothing in addition to the general government fund that's
The-
new other than those two.
The training, it was, again, employee training?
Employee training, so that increase is driven by our citywide tuition reimbursement program. We had about 20 employees request to participate in the tuition reimbursement program. I know that in the past, we've budgeted a percentage of that, recognizing that not all employees that submit actually go through and spend the amount of money that they originally anticipated. So right now, we're budgeting the entirety of the request of 121,000. So we'll probably adjust
That's how much
that.
has been submitted?
Yes,
Is
sir.
121,000?
So
Okay.
we'll probably, I think in the past, we've budgeted maybe 80% of that.
All right.
Again, anticipating that there will be people that won't finish or will need more time.
Okay.
All right. In terms of the capital projects fund for general government, this include the big picture, or the big project that we have included here is the city hall renovation. And right now, our budget is built under the assumption that we would pay that with cash on hand by using a combination of capital projects fund, state aid tax, and muni aid tax. And that we assume that project will migrate over two fiscal years. So we've estimated $2 million for FY '25 and $2 million for FY '26. We are evaluating, we want to see how, when everything's plugged in, how our fund balances look and how our forecast looks. This might be an opportunity for us to consider whether to issue a bond for a project of this size. We've had the RUC bond mature last year. We have the fire station bond is maturing in 2 years in FY '26. So we have some bond issues that are falling off of our schedule. Obviously, interest rates are very high at this point, so that is just an analysis that we're working on, and we'll discuss with you all at the workshop, whether we want to, float it with our money or issue a debt service, and, are we looking at a 10, 15, 20-year debt service, or what would be the most favorable option for us? But as it is built today, it includes that money spread between 2 fiscal years and split between those funds that I mentioned earlier.
So the funds again are the capital project fund, the muni aid tax fund, and the state aid tax fund?
Yes,
Those
sir.
three? Okay. But that project is going through the facilities committee, right? With the
Yes, yes. We are, right now, we're at the assessment stage. They're looking at options, whether to restore, renovate our existing structure and what are our options to expand, whether it's more cost-effective for us to build from the ground up and maybe even move it to a different location. They're looking at a couple of options, one being the corner lot and consolidating it with the Public Works workshop, or if there's an opportunity next to the public safety building and consolidate it with that into a greater municipal complex. So they're looking into that, and we'll bring forward those recommendations and discussions through the committee process. Big expenditure in the building department is, well, no, we had a replacement of the building inspector truck, building official, but that has been deferred to FY '26. We evaluated the condition and we think it could be deferred. And then the big increase in the court budget is under professional services. That's where we include funds for attorney's fees for the city. Understanding our current situation and some of the lawsuits that the city is involved, we felt like it was appropriate to increase that by $30,000 for FY '26.
Do you have we have a judge, two judges now, right?
Yes, sir.
And that both,
Yes.
one full and one part, or?
We have our municipal judge, and then we have an associate judge.
Right.
And we have increased our, we used to have one court date, now we're doing 3, just due to the volume of cases.
So it's two both of them are pretty much full-time, or full
I
workload?
would say they're, one does 2 courts a month and another one does 1.
Okay.
I'm sure. Amy will say something if I misspeak.
Assuming she's paying attention.
John, in regards to the the
Health
health
insurance.
insurance you asked about,
Yeah,
so the rate, the 50,000 that you're looking at doesn't reflect the new rate that we received on January 1. This is as of December 31st, so that rate changed on January 1, so that's why it's 50,000. As well as there were several employees that were not claiming dependents in this budget, and now they're claiming dependents. So we budgeted $9,600 last year for dependents, and this year is $27,000. Because that many people are now claiming dependents in GNA.
so it's a higher
And-
usage rate, or of
Right,
of
in
insurance?
general
Yeah,
government, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's the 1-2 punch.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Ashley.
Are there any questions? We will be reviewing all of the, the entire first draft of the budget with council at the workshop, so if there's any questions, I know Elizabeth and Ashley, it's gonna be your first go-round.
Right.
We would be happy, and we do this all the time, to meet one-on-one if you would like to understand the fund and how we prepare the budget. I think that might be helpful, so feel free to reach out to us and we'll make some time.
Even 2-on-1's fine with me.
Yep, I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't think do you have anything else to add now that you've made it? We're good? Desiree
will
got it
say-
covered, she
Yes,
did
she did.
everything?
I will
Okay.
say Deborah has been a rock star. I am
Yes.
just impressed at how quickly she's picked up all, just the budget. It's, I think once you do it once, it becomes very simple, but for her first time, I've just been blown away. So I just wanted to give her
Good.
a good attaboy or
Now that-
attagirl.
now that she's in the room, we're gonna-
Yes. It's been great.
That's
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
She may not say it's been great, but
Yeah. Okay, so, moving on, miscellaneous business, next meeting date, 4:30, April the 4th. No other miscellaneous business, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.